blood covenant is one of the oldest known covenant practices in the human family. It's amazing when you study this, and you'll see as we go along. All cultures of the world, this is what research is showing us. All nations of the world, all ethnicities of the world participated in the ritual of blood covenant. As far back as you can go in mankind, as far back as people like Abraham, even before he met God, in his nation they practiced the blood covenant. On the continent of Africa, there are still nations that are practicing that blood covenant to date. And so you see traces of blood covenant practices even in things that we do now in modern day society. Most of you may not know that the handshake comes from the practice of blood covenant. And we shake hands today, and people write a covenant. And after writing a contract, then they shake hands. And all of that is traces of blood covenants. The tattoos that some of you have. How many of you are sitting next to somebody with a tattoo? But the tattoos that people have, they don't know where it comes from. Or some of you try to really be modern or whatever you want to do. You do this white wedding and then you take the bride and you carry them over the threshold. That comes from blood covenant. And I'm going to show you how all those practices, somehow God in his wisdom redeemed those practices to bring men near to him so that he can teach men who he is. Because when mankind met God, they didn't know if they can trust God. And the only way for God to gain their trust was to make a blood covenant in terms of what they knew it to be. And then they could trust God. So somehow God is able to redeem culture. And is able to take what we know as a practice and use it as a starting point to take us to what we don't know. I don't know how many of you know this, that when Paul was trying to teach people in his day who were very aware of the Roman culture and some of the other cultures of the time, and in him trying to explain what the love of God is, he went for a word that was used in that culture. Because in the culture of the time, they had different words to designate love. You had the word for eros, erotic love, that's sexual love. You had the word stegen or stoge, which is like a friendly kind of love. Then you have the word phileo. Phileo means to like. Now, unfortunately, when we speak in English, you say, I love my dog, I love my cat, I love my wife. The truth is this, those loves are not the same. Because you don't love your dog the same way you love your wife. Unless some of you, I don't know some of you, but you don't love your car the same way. And then when you say to your friend, I love you, it's not the same way as the way you love your car. So they had different words for love. Phileo is to like. Stoge, which is a friendly kind of love. Eros is sexual kind of love. That's where we get the word erotic. All right? But then they believed that there's another love that can only be possessed by deities, by gods. It was not possible for human beings to love like that because all the other three kinds of love are based on emotion and feeling. And these other three kinds of love are very, what's the term? They can end, dikafela. And they are based on temporal things. They can be more, they can be less, they can be withdrawn, they are not consistent. People can take it away, it comes back sometimes, whatever. But they believe that there should be a love that human beings don't have the capacity to have. Only God can have that love. So Paul, in trying to teach people about the love of God, he went for the word agape, which was not a Christian word, but it was a pagan word. So somehow God is able to go into something that might not necessarily be, what he does and use it to explain. But then that same love of agape, then Paul then makes even a more shocking statement in Romans 5 when he says that same love has been shed abroad in our hearts so that we can love like God can love. Oh. So I'm trying to show you that this blood covenant, I'm going to show you story after story after story after story of how God has really gone back into culture and from culture brought back these truths and tried to use what people know so that he can reveal himself to them so that people can trust him.